everybody. Welcome back to Sarah's Table. Today we are doing something a little bit different. My name is Sarah Moore. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to be your host for the evening and your favorite person. And tonight I am going to be doing something that I like to call a cozy Christmas corner. Earlier this week, I forcibly took over Robert Hartley Jam's Twitch channel and I read several Christmas stories, and it was just like so lovely and sweet. And things sort of changed a little bit for me this week with scheduling because we're coming up so close to Christmas, and everybody's schedule is wild, and some people had to postpone. And so I decided that I would read a couple more Christmas stories. So if you are joining me again, if you joined me on Tuesday, if you're joining me again, I'm going to read different Christmas stories. I would hate to repeat. And if I happen to not read your favorite tonight, then you can maybe hop over, and maybe I did it on Robert Hartley Jam's channel. I'll make sure that I link to it in the comments so that you can go check out that one when this one's done. I love Christmas so much. I just look forward to it all year long. And it starts for me in my house, definitely like the moment that Thanksgiving is over. Probably before that, honestly, I don't do a lot of Thanksgiving. We don't really care about Thanksgiving so much. So, like this year we had just me and my partner and my two children, and we had a very chill Thanksgiving dinner where we each just like picked something out from one of our nerd cookbooks and then ate it. And then we like immediately started decorating for Christmas. It was like, it is time for Christmas. And I'm like, I've got these delightful, if you can see in the background, these lovely polyhedral dice lights, which were a Christmas gift from my partner in crime on the Crown. Lovely lights. They're very pretty. He said he got them from his name's Damon. He said he got them from a website that he wasn't sure was an actual website. So I don't know that I can tell you where they came from, but Christmas. I am the target market for people who wear these ridiculously garish, like light up necklaces that you get at Walgreens for like $5. And then my shirt says joyful, which is kind of perfect because #joyful gaming. Yeah, just love it. In fact, I have several Christmas mugs, and probably tonight I'm going to make some more hot cocoa in them. Have some. We have a plethora of mini marshmallows. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna read you my partner's favorite Christmas book. Every year on Christmas Eve, I read him his favorite. He reads me my favorite. It's just something about being read to that is just like really lovely. And it doesn't happen very often. Like, you just don't get, when you are an adult, you don't have someone read you a story. And like, I think there's something sort of magical about it. And I wanted to share that with you because I love the magic of the season. And there's sort of magic everywhere, right? Just have to look for it. So his favorite is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss, a long-winded Bella. Every time I read a Dr. Seuss book, I think it's probably almost over. And then it's like only a third of the way in. It's very surprising to me. This one's dedicated to Teddy Owens, whoever that is. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled, with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. I always thought that this looked like a heck of a lot of fun. But it does look very loud. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast. And they'd feast. And they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. I mean, I don't know. I gotta disagree with the Grinch here because I really like pudding and roast animals. I just like food. Just really like food. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Very cranky for a 53-year-old. Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. I don't know if any of you have seen The Grinch. I feel like everyone has seen The Grinch, the animated cartoon. But Max is like my favorite part And I especially love when he ties the big horn on his head and it's too heavy and his little puppy face like smashes down onto the ground into the snow. And he has to like cut a bunch off until his little body it levels back out. So good. Then he loaded some bags and some old and empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Get up!" The sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square. "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. This house belongs to J.P. Who. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunked the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," he was grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a moment or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. Oh, there. Mount Crumpet looks like a dangerous place. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. I don't know if anybody here has a Grinch in their life, but this is a favorite. Reminds us that the Christmas is that spirit that you carry in yourself, that feeling of joy and family and togetherness and happiness and laughter. And I mean, family can mean a lot of different things. Can mean found family, can mean chosen family, can be the family that you were born into. So just like this holiday season, take a moment and appreciate the family that you have built for yourself. However you find it appropriate to do so. So I mentioned that my partner always reads my favorite book. And my favorite Christmas story is The Polar Express. And I know that there is a movie out now, which I think has been out now for like, oh gosh, probably a decade at this point. But I started reading this when I was a wee one, and there was no movie. And so I have a particular allegiance to the original story. The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. I remember looking at the illustrations in this book. Like there's a section where it's like going through the frozen tundra and there are wolves around, just like feeling like it was just so magical. And it's dedicated to Karen. I don't know who Karen is. Maybe it's you. Okay, here we go. I have to tell you before I start. I did the thing again. I haven't read this book in, oh gosh, like I think since I got married. So it's been like 18 years. I have always had it read to me. So it always makes me a little emotional too. So we'll see if I get choked up while I'm reading. You're welcome. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. I grew up next to a train yard, and so there was always the sounds of trains. And now I live so close to a train. Trains have been sort of like really central in my life. When I was in college, there was trains that went by so close to my dorm room that the windows were nailed shut because otherwise you could reach out and touch the train. So it was just like trains have always been a thing. Maybe it was the Polar Express and I didn't know. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard, the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The adventure begins. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. I have always wanted to go do the Polar Express. They dress up different trains and you can go have the Polar Express experience. But they didn't start doing that until I was very firmly an adult. And I was never sure if that would be all right. Although I do still very much want to put on just big cozy pajamas and robe and go on the Polar Express. So let me know who wants to come with. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. I don't like roller coasters. But in this case, I'll make an exception. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the Great Polar Ice Cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves!" Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket." Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, uh-oh, it's totally fine. I'm here. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. This is why I don't read it. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. Oh, welcome to Christmas, you guys. I just think I just think it's like really lovely to be able to see the magic in what's going on around you. Plus, that story makes me feel like a kid. So, so we all get to hang out with me for a moment while I am overly emotional. All right. So I have we have some traditions we do in the house. We don't really do an advent calendar, because we're not terribly religious about the season. It's not like a like we're far more into the secular version of Christmas than like the very traditional religious version of Christmas here in the house. But we decorate. We try to decorate kind of everywhere. We have up lights in our kitchen. We have our Christmas tree up and decorated in our living room. We have lights and garland up in our library. We have Christmas lights downstairs in the game room, but those are up year round, because they just like add such a lovely ambiance to the area when we're gaming. We have a wreath outside and some big lights. They're kind of kind of big like this outside, because we just love it. And I try to watch something that is a Christmassy story, Christmas show of some kind, every day of December. Really, every day starting on Thanksgiving. Pew pew pew. Some of my favorites. I don't know if you all are familiar with them, but we love the Garfield Christmas special, where he goes out to the Arbuckle family farm, and finds John's mother's like love letters that she received from her husband. It's just so sweet. We love A Charlie Brown Christmas. We watch that every year. My favorite holiday movie is White Christmas. Because it just, in case you couldn't tell from earlier in the stream, when I just like feel everything so intensely, that movie, you just feel it. There's, I could go on about how amazing the costuming is and how amazing the dance numbers are and how wonderful the music is and how warm it is and how it's all about just like seizing the moment and making it okay for everyone to love the season and love each other, and find what is important to you and grab onto that with everything that you've got. I guess I just did all that. But like, it's just so wonderful. I'm going to be watching it soon. You're all invited. Come over. Watch the movie with me. It's my favorite. I'll watch it 100 times. Once for each of you. We have a little bit of time left in the stream. And I was thinking that maybe I would talk about a little history lesson. I have a book called Yule, A Celebration of Light and Warmth. And it sort of gives us a little background on Christmas. And I thought I would give it to you. I feel like people know sort of the history of Christmas and that like it was once a pagan holiday and the Christians sort of co-opted it and it became when Jesus was born. And the truth is that like most religions have a holiday of light because it's in the winter. And as humans, we need things to look forward to, and we need magic to latch onto, and we need to know that like this winter is going to be over. And so these holidays of light are about finding those little miracles in everyday life and knowing that you are going to come out the other side. So I'm going to read you a little history of Yule, how it all began. As human beings, we are a diverse group of people. We come in many sizes, colors, and shapes. We come from different cultures, speak different languages, and practice different religions. Even the food we like to eat varies. Yet no matter who we are or where we live, one thing remains constant. We all look forward to the winter holidays. By some, they're called Christmas or Hanukkah. By others, Las Posadas or Taichio. Still others call them winter solstice, Yule, and lots of other names that most of us can't pronounce. Each celebration is a little different, but the main ideas are the same. These holidays provide us with a time for reflection, resolution, and renewal. A time for gift giving, goodwill, and kindness. Most important, though, they provide us with rituals to celebrate the balance of light and dark. Rituals for welcoming the healing powers of warmth back into our world. And that gives us a common ground that draws us together as a people. Whew. So where do they come from, these holidays that we all celebrate? Contrary to popular belief, they didn't begin with Christmas. Rather, they started over 4,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. The occasion? An extravagant party to celebrate the rebirth of Horus, the god who appeared in the sky as a fiery orb each day. The same orb we know today as the sun. Because the Egyptians honored Horus with a 12-month calendar, the festival lasted 12 days, with each day symbolizing 1 month. Buildings were decorated with greenery of all sorts to honor the sun. The most valued decorations, however, were palm branches with 12 fronds. The reason for their value was simple. Because palm branches put out one shoot each month, a 12-fronded branch formed a type of calendar. This made them a great representation of the entire birth, death, and rebirth cycle of the sun. Using them to honor the sun was believed to speed his growth and strength and encourage him to stay in the sky longer. The Egyptians flourished, and word of their sun welcoming ceremonies quickly swept through Mesopotamia. Believing that the rituals were at the heart of their neighbors' prosperity, the Babylonians took up the cause and got in on the act. However, they called it Zagmuk and incorporated their own creator sun god, Marduk. The Babylonians believed that Marduk had created the world and made it one of order, beauty, and peace. It hadn't been an easy task, however. First, he'd had to fight a grueling battle and defeat the monsters of chaos. Each year, everything went along splendidly until the cooler weather brought winter. Then the monsters regained their strength and once again challenged Marduk's reign. The battle was on and lasted for 12 days, but Marduk could no longer defeat the monsters by himself. He needed the help of the people. It was their job to cheer him on and help him win the war. Only then could order be restored and beauty and peace on earth be renewed. The Zagmuk festival began 5 days before winter solstice and lasted 6 days after, with the peak of the festival falling on the solstice itself. On the 7th day, the sun stayed in the sky a little bit longer, a sure sign that Marduk was well on his way to victory. This resulted in parades on land and river, good tidings, and the occasional exchange of gifts. The world was renewed for another year, and all was right with the Babylonian people. Not long after, the Persians caught on and began to help Marduk too. Called Sakaya, their festival was a little different and involved a temporary state of chaos. Slaves and masters changed places with each other, a mock king was crowned, and law and order flew right out the window. Grudges and debts were forgotten, if only temporarily. A good time was had by all. And why not? It was the one time of year that the folks could do exactly as they pleased without worry of consequence or retribution. As the sun's light grew stronger, so did the party. During the last few days, things gradually wound down, and by the end of the festival, order was restored to the Greek world. Eventually, word of these sun-welcoming festivities spilled into the outside world, and other folks, exchanging Marduk and the monsters for their gods, took up the cause as well. In the Greek version of Sakaya, Zeus defeated Kronos and the Titans. But that wasn't the main reason for their festivities. Apparently, the Kalakantzaroi, mischievous imps, similar to those defeated by Marduk, roamed the land wreaking havoc during the 12 days of Sakaya. They also had a reputation for stealing the spirits of unsuspecting children, especially those born during that period. Of course, the Greeks did their best to keep them at bay. New babies were wrapped with garlic bundles, and because the monsters supposedly couldn't tolerate fire and smoke, each family kept a large log burning for the duration of the festival. These were fueled with old clothes and shoes, spoiled food, and anything else that might prove offensive to the intruders. Finally, the ancient Romans, a good many of them practitioners of a sun-worshipping religion called Mithraism, decided to participate, and that is when the winter festivities really started to take shape. They combined most of the traditions of their predecessors and added a few of their own. First on the agenda was the exchange of god figures, Jupiter for Zeus and Saturn for Kronos. This gave them the opportunity to honor Saturn, one of their most important gods, if only briefly. To that end, the festival was called Saturnalia. Why all the hubbub about Saturn? Because the god was not only responsible for the pulse of nature and its germinating properties, but had gone to great lengths to teach the people about agriculture, fairness, and peaceable living. Commonly known as the Golden Age, his reign allowed fruitful living and the equality of all human beings. With that in mind, it's no wonder that the people jumped at the chance to give him his due. The festival began at the Roman temple of Saturn with a ceremony to remove the chains that had bound the god's feet all year long, a sure sign that the Golden Age was alive and well. With that, the whole of Rome was on holiday. Quarrels and arguments were history. Schools were dismissed, businesses and legal facilities were closed. Because everyone was of equal stature, children ruled families, masters served slaves, and the Lord of Misrule, a mock king, was crowned. During the week, the Romans decorated their homes and halls with laurel boughs. They lit candles and lamps to chase away evil spirits and built bonfires on hilltops to encourage the birth of the sun. The party continued with candlelit processions, singing, masquerade balls, and elaborate feasts. Gift-giving, an occasional practice initiated by the Babylonians, entered the forefront and became a mandatory part of the holiday. The Romans really knew how to throw a party. and this was the biggest bash of the year. As the sun gained power in the sky, Jupiter once again defeated Saturn. His feet were bound for another year, and the order of normal living returned to Rome. But didn't the Romans mind all their fun coming to an end? Well, not really. After all, Jupiter was the god of success and good health, and one can never have too much of either. So it went with the popularity of the winter festivals. They spread through Europe, cropping up here and there, taking hold and gaining power. Eventually, there wasn't a culture, creed, or belief system that couldn't claim their own festival. Then Christianity, a new religion, sprang to the forefront and swept through the civilized world. A problem was encountered during the conversion efforts, however. No matter how good the new religion sounded to the pagan world, they were used to the old ways and their unique lifestyle. Most important, though, they knew how their deities reacted to every situation, and they trusted them. There was no reason to switch to a form of living they didn't understand or to a god they didn't know. Taking that into consideration, the Christians, former pagans themselves, devised a plan to make them feel more at ease. First, they built their churches on old pagan worship sites. The reasoning was that the people had always worshipped on the sites, were comfortable there, and would continue to frequent them, church building or not. They incorporated pagan symbols within the church decor and added some revised pagan customs to the rituals. To help matters further, they changed the names of a few pagan deities ever so slightly, called them saints, and added them to the Christian pantheon. It was a great plan, but it didn't work quite as well as originally anticipated. In fact, the Romans didn't take well to it at all. Why? Because they felt that the Christians were making a mockery of their gods. As a result, the Christians were unable to practice safely and went into hiding for a while until they could figure out what to do. Finally, around the 4th century, the Christians had a revelation. Unlike the pagan religion, theirs was based on the workings of their man-god Jesus and his death and resurrection. It had never shown much concern for his birth, because the birth, death, rebirth cycle had always been a large part of the pagan belief system. Ignoring the birth factor constituted a missing link. Another problem was that the pagans revered goddesses, mother goddesses in particular. Realizing their errors, the Christians put on their thinking caps and returned to the drawing board. At last, they came up with a series of plans to solve their worship problems. First, they dealt with the goddess issue. Admitting a few goddesses' sainthood wasn't a problem, but they needed something stronger. What they needed was a real mother goddess in the midst of their patriarchal world. They finally decided on Mary, the mother of their man god, Jesus. Previously unimportant to the Christian world, she gained new significance as the mother of God. To secure their position, they also played upon her ascension role and billed her as the Queen of Heaven. This gave Christianity a bit of a safety zone because to the outside world, it linked them to Isis, the Egyptian Queen of Heaven. That didn't solve their problems completely, though. In order to worship safely and gain new members, they needed to meld more evenly with the pagan practices. Finally, the Christians hit upon a solution. If they couldn't beat the pagans, they'd simply join them. Since no one really knew when the Christ child was born, the Christians set his birth on December 25th. His date fell in the middle of the winter holidays, and because some pagans held a special celebration on December 25th anyway, the new festival would go unnoticed. To ensure smooth sailing, the Christians took an added precaution. They billed the festival as the birth of the sun, because sun S-O-N and sun S-U-N were pronounced the same. Pagans would think the new celebration was just an addition to their festivals. The pagans were happy, the Christians were comfortable, and Christmas was born unto the world. I just really think traditions and history of stuff is super cool, and how we have sort of melded all together into what Christmas is seen as today. I know this is going to come as a shock to a lot of people, but I'm kind of a big nerd. And so like history and myth, Christmas truly is just like the perfect blending in my eyes of history and myth and magic and like urban legend and cryptids, like, there are so many Christmas stories that involve like abominable snowmen, which are basically sort of like Yeti situations. Like reindeer that can fly is definitely a cryptid. Snowmen that can talk, like this. These are all like local legends that have just sort of taken on a bigger significance. And just like so much magic. And then the Victorians, because they were wild and freaky, they started their tradition of like telling ghost stories that go along with Christmas. I mean, A Christmas Carol is absolutely, it's just a ghost story. It's just like a mean dude who is visited by four spirits, the spirit of his previous business partner, and then ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. And like, it's this big cautionary tale, but that's all things that they would do. And if you listen to classic Christmas songs, they refer to like scary ghost stories in them. And I just like love every part of it. I think it's just like it's fun and joyful. And I know that the holiday can be difficult for some people. And that's okay. Be gentle on yourself if that is the case. But remember that no matter how you celebrate, if you celebrate at all, it is right for you. There's no wrong way to Christmas. Reach out to some of your found family this holiday season. Tell them you love them. Tell them that they are important to you. If you want to send a token, some sort of gift, like just let them know that that they have made your year better. Christmas is a time of reflection. And like get yourself some hot chocolate or some eggnog. I don't like eggnog. I already talked about this on the other stream. I like custard nog. Ooh, get it. Get custard nog. All right. I'm gonna give you a couple of trivia and fun facts because I also really love trivia. I don't know if you all do this. I do. It's just like info dump time. Info dump time with Sarah. Ba-ba-ba. I just wrote that song. I participate in a daily trivia situation called Learned League, where they ask you ridiculously hard questions about things that don't make any sense. But I really love it. And so anytime I can find like little trivia and fun facts, I just go on to it. So modern day astronomers say that the famous Star of Bethlehem wasn't a star at all. More than likely, it was either a comet or an astronomical phenomenon caused by the conjunction of several planets at once, which makes sense because it was incredibly bright in the sky, according to all accounts. And it would have to be at that time, you're not looking at it through any kind of high-powered anything. So it would have to be super, super bright to see it. According to historical records, the first American Christmas festivities took place in Jamestown in 1607. The celebration was a device to cheer up the 40 settlers who had survived living in the New World. The original number was 100. Woof. Lost 60% of your town. Let's have a party and just be relieved that we are still here. Because the British Parliament felt Christmas was a heathen holiday, they officially abolished all related festivities in 1643. Ah, the Brits. Killing all the joy. The historical records of 1836 show Alabama as the first state in the Union to give Christmas the status of legal holiday. Hey, good job, Alabama. Oklahoma was the last state to conform. They didn't declare it a legal holiday until 1907. Oklahoma. What? What were you waiting for? The first commemorative Christmas stamp was issued in Austria in 1937. I have to tell you that I am just like upset that Learned League didn't have like any Christmas questions this month. Y'all, it is already like halfway through the month. There should be so many Christmas questions. Donder, not Donner, Donder with a D, which means thunder, was the original name of the reindeer who helped pull Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve. And he was paired with Blitzen, whose name means, as you know, lightning. The story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was written specifically as a sales gimmick for the Montgomery Ward Company in 1939 by one of their employees, Robert L. May. The little book was given freely to every customer who shopped there during the holiday season. And like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of Misfit Toys, absolutely also a favorite of mine. Love a good claymation story. Info dump with Sarah. The candy cane first gained popularity in churches, where it was given as a treat to children who behaved themselves during services. Eggnog wasn't always the creamy, rich drink we know today. It is a derivative of a 17th century ale called a nog. The Irish celebrated each Christmas Eve by drinking a pint or more, for in their country, all pubs were closed on Christmas Day. So you go out, you get your fill, you go home, and you sober up with your family. Gingerbread houses became popular holiday gifts during the 19th century after the Brothers Grimm released the story Hansel and Gretel. St. Francis of Assisi introduced the singing of carols to holiday church services. The first American carol, a song entitled Jesus is Born, was written by Reverend John de Brebert in 1649. At midnight on the Christmas Eve of 1914, German gunfire suddenly halted and was replaced by the singing of carols. At daybreak, the German soldiers began to call out Merry Christmas to their foes. Before long, both sides declared a truce, shook hands with each other, and exchanged gifts of food, cigarettes, and liquor. The merriment and goodwill lasted for 3 days. Wartime. Woof. Irving Berlin wrote the popular carol I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas in 1942, specifically for the movie Holiday Inn, in which Bing Crosby starred. And then that was so popular. It's not in the book, but it was so popular that he wrote the whole thing, and it became, it spawned White Christmas, which I've already talked about, how wonderful it is. And I'm just like, as soon as we're done here, you should definitely just go watch it. And then you can message me on social media and tell me how wonderful it was. I'll wait. 2 years after World War II ended, the people of Oslo, Norway, sent a holiday tree to the city of Westminster in appreciation of British support. This tradition continues today. I don't know if it continues today. When was this book written? I've had this book for a long time. I think if you know the answer, people of the internet, This book was written in 2002. So as of 2002, they were still sending a holiday tree to Westminster. Are they still? We don't know. It has been 20 years because I'm old. Okay. Along the shores of the Mississippi River, especially along the Louisiana coastline, bonfires are lit on Christmas Eve, and their purpose is to guide the way for Father Christmas. I bet you know this next one. The image of Santa as we know it today was popularized by none other than the Coca-Cola Company. Because that's the Santa we think of, right? That's the Father Christmas, the one that is on the Coke bottles. The custom of Santa eating cookies on Christmas Eve originated in Germany, where trees were decorated with fruit, flowers, and sweet confections. After leaving gifts for good children, he'd simply help himself to the goodies on the tree. That sounds great. I would like my Christmas Eve goodies with less pine in them, but like, I'm also probably never going to turn down a cookie. Never going to turn down a cookie. Okay. Santa's fur-trimmed suit, his cap, and his cloak were fashioned after the clothing of the Dutch saint Nicholas, who wore a bishop's mitre and vestments. Saint Nick doesn't get a vacation after the winter holidays, since he is also the patron saint responsible for Greece, Russia, sailors, merchants, pawnbrokers, bakers, prisoners, children, and wolves. So he's a very busy spirit year-round. Man, why are there not more wolves? Like, why is he getting pulled by reindeer instead of like flying wolves? Because that also sounds pretty dope. Oh, you guys. Christmas nails. These nails caused some consternation at the nail salon. I went in and I was like, here's what I want. And I brought him a picture and I was like lights. And it's going to be a bunch of different colors. And they had to like pull out the big guns. The person doing my nails was like, I do not feel confident making those. That's all freehand stuff. Pew, pew, pew. So we had to bring somebody else in, which was just adorable. But I have them now and I love them. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. What are you all getting yourself for Christmas? What is the thing that you are rewarding yourself with? We made it through 2022. I don't know how your year went. Pretty soon I'm going to be releasing like how many different episodes I did and how many different systems I ran and how many different people I had the pleasure of having at my table. Let me tell you what, I worked my little took us off. So much excitement, so much joy, so much gratitude. I really loved doing it, but like, boy, it was a lot, you know? And I have been trying to decide what I want to get for myself to thank myself. And I just got this pink, I don't know if it's even in frame. I just got a new microphone and it is baby pink because pink and rainbows all over my life. Ba, 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 ba. And also all over my nails. So what is a thing that you're giving to yourself? And the answer can be a day off. I would love to also give myself a day off. I just want to take a nap. I just want to sit down and have nobody asking me for things. And how amazing would that be? And I just want to like sit on the couch and I want my kids around me and I want my partner around me. And I want to just like watch White Christmas. I've said it again. Everybody come over and watch White Christmas. I'm gonna go make the popcorn right now and heat up maybe some hot cider and maybe some hot chocolate and maybe get some custard nog and some cookies. Yeah, it's time. It's time. Okay, here's the deal. Everybody come over. I'm getting ready. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to thank Gen Con TV. I want to thank Gen Con in conjunction with Gen Con TV for giving me this platform to spotlight like indie games and basically whatever I want. I want to thank Peter Axton for trusting me with this time slot and just saying, I want you to bring your brand of ridiculousness and joy and joyful gaming here to our channel. I would like to thank Marcus Mays for being my unflappable tech person during this whole year that I have been working. He is on the other end of that, hit that go button. He is in the chat as Gen Con TV. Thank you, Marcus, for any time that I was like, hey, I have a weird idea. He was always like, let's do it. I would like to thank my partner, Jeff Moore, for so many things. Like, first of all, for like going on this weird, wild journey with me and allowing me to always be myself, which includes sometimes crying on stream about how much you love Christmas. That's real. But also for editing all of my stuff together all the time. And you know, putting a filter on it to make it look like I always know what I'm talking about. Because sometimes I do not. I would like to thank every person who was at my table this year and who believed in me and who oftentimes I would say, hey, I'd like you to show up at this time to record this thing and I will teach you how to play what we're playing, and have them not even ask what the game was. I mean, there was a lot of just like, I truly feel incredibly lucky that so many people were just like, whatever you want to do, I can't wait to be at your table. I just like being there. I would like to thank everybody at home who has watched. It's been so nice. I appreciate you all so much. I love talking with you in chat, and I love interacting with you on social media, and there can be more of that. So please make sure that you are continuing. You can find me on everything at Pixies and Pins. I'm all over the world, except Facebook is Actor Sarah Moore, because one's got to be different. But everywhere else, you know, Instagram, Facebook, nope. Instagram, Twitter, Ko-Fi, TikTok, Twitch at Pixies and Pins. My website is pixiesandpins.com, which my partner, Jeff, also makes. Jeff, I love you. Thank you for understanding how bad I am at technology and picking up that slack. I just feel like I could like keep thanking people forever. I could keep thanking people forever. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop thanking people. I thanked you. Whoever you are, who's watching this right now, thank you. So next week we are hopping back into a very special episode. Like I said, every time it's a very special episode. Next week we are doing a double episode. It's going to be at a special time. It is going to start at 3 p.m. Pacific, and it's going to go until we're done. We are building a tiny pantheon of gods for The Crowned, which is the game that I helped write with Damon Van Hee. We're done kickstarting it, and now we're just finishing it all up. So we're going to do a holiday-themed episode next week, which will be the 23rd, 3 p.m. Pacific, double episode. It's going to be a lot. I can't wait to see what we do. I'm running it, and I don't know yet. It's going to be great. I'm going to figure it out. And then we're going to wrap up the year on December 30th with The Journey to the Whispering Tree, which is a little pamphlet of an RPG by Jamila R. Najati. And you are going into like the Feywild. And you have to get back out or your wish will not come true. Sounds wild. And then we have some stuff coming up in the new year. I'm really excited about. My birthday is in January, and I am going to collaborate with Gen Con TV, and we're going to do a charity stream for probably Trevor Project. I'm a bisexual person, and it is important to me that we support charities and organizations that fight for LGBTQ plus rights and fund marginalized folk who need assistance. And I've been talking to some game designer friends who have really cool stuff coming out, and we're gonna get it on the show. And I'm so excited. I just like could probably talk for another hour. I will not. I will not talk for another hour. Probably. I maybe will later. Oh, you know what? Come back. Let's see what happens. So 23rd, 3 p.m. Pacific, 30th, 5 p.m. Pacific, back to regular time. And then we're gonna keep going and see what happens. And I hope everyone has the most wonderful, joyful, comfortable, safe holiday season that they possibly can. And if I am at all a part of that, I will be honored to be included. So please enjoy yourself. Thank you for being with me. And as always, keep making art and keep being art. I'll see you next time. Mwah.